It starts in the conference room with the two bright lights and the smell of overused whiteboard markers. Your palms sweat slightly as you flip open your laptop. Not because you're nervous, okay, maybe a little, but because this thing you're about to pitch, it's yours. Not borrowed from a blog or recycled from someone else's notes. Yours. You've spent months refining it. Early mornings, late nights, ramen dinners, and half-finished voice memos. You worked through birthdays and skipped weekends. And now you're here sitting across from your boss, Steve, with his perfect haircut and permanent smirk watching him sip overpriced coffee like this. Meeting is just another checkmark in his planner. You take a breath. Then you begin. You walk him through the architecture first, just enough technical detail to prove the foundation's solid. Then the design clean, scalable, elegant. And finally, the hook a predictive engine with a feedback loop so smart it practically teaches itself. Steve leans forward at that part. His eyes do that little flicker, the one that makes you think he's actually listening. For a moment, it feels like everything's going right. You finish with a demo. A smooth, polished 5-minute run-through. No glitches, no awkward silences, just results. When it ends, the room goes quiet. Then Steve leans back in his chair and whistles. That's impressive, he says. You nod, trying not to grin too wide. He steeples his fingers. You built this whole thing yourself? You shrug, modest. I mean, I had help with the front-end visuals. But yeah, conceptually, it's mine. Another pause. He looks at you with something that feels close to admiration. Then, let's circle back on this. I want to explore it further. You walk out of the room floating. You text Max, your friend in dev. He actually liked it. Think this might finally be it. You imagine what comes next, a team, a budget, maybe your name on a patent filing, recognition. You've never wanted to be famous. You just want to matter. That afternoon, Steve swings by your desk and says, I want you to clean up the back-end documentation. Just in case we loop in more people. It's a good sign, you think. He's making space for scale. You don't know it yet, but the decision's already been made. The moment your demo finished playing, the wheels started turning behind his eyes. You head home that night on a high, the kind that only comes when hard work finally feels like it's paying off. You eat real food for once. You let yourself relax. You don't notice that Steve never forwarded you the calendar invite he created after your meeting titled Next Steps Platform Vision Strategy. You don't notice the sudden bump in after-hours calls coming from his office. You don't notice the silence. Not yet. You're still dreaming, still proud, still unaware that you've just handed him the crown jewels, gift-wrapped, polished, and explained line by line. The next day, he's all charm. Steve walks by your desk with a cup of coffee, your favorite order, which he's never once gotten right before, and places it gently beside your keyboard. Appreciation for the genius, he says, winking. You laugh, a little stunned. Thanks. I didn't realize we were doing coffee diplomacy now. He grins, only when it's earned. You take the coffee, you sip. It's perfect. You ignore the way your stomach tightens slightly. That morning flies by in a blur. You're updating the documentation, like he asked, refining logic flows, annotating edge cases no one else would have caught. You even throw in a few internal comments to future-proof the thing for scale, for investors, for the team you're sure is coming. It's not glamorous work, but it's yours. You don't notice Steve hasn't replied to your follow-up email, the one where you suggested syncing later to go over long-term rollout plans. You figure he's busy. But at 3:17 p.m., you see the alert, a meeting, high-level, strategy, with the board. You weren't invited. You wouldn't have even known it existed if Max hadn't sent you a screenshot. Is this your thing? Weird you're not on the invite. You stare at it. There's no mistaking it. The meeting subject is nearly identical to your project's internal codename. And the attendees, all C-suite. Except you. You sit back blinking. No panic, not yet. You check Slack. No mention. You text Steve. Hey, saw the strategy meeting. Need me to prep anything? No response. 2 hours later, he walks out of the conference room smiling like he's swallowed a star. People clap. Someone says, nice pitch, Steve. You freeze. You know that tone. You've used it before. You close your laptop gently. Not because you're done working, because you can't trust yourself to not throw it across the floor. You go home early. He doesn't notice. That night, you pour yourself a glass of wine and try to play it all back. Maybe it's not what it looks like. Maybe he's just socializing the idea first. Maybe he's getting buy-in before looping you in fully. Maybe. But that tiny thread of dread starts tightening around your ribs. The next morning confirms everything. You walk into the office to see your idea plastered across a slide deck on the big screen. New logo, new name, rebranded in Steve's polished corporate voice. Project Helix, the slide reads. No mention of you. Not in the footnotes, not in the credits. You stand in the back of the room while Steve presents it to the full team like it's something that came to him in the shower. The predictive engine renamed IntelliLoop. The feedback system, now dynamic adjust. Even the visuals are yours, just stripped of personality and sterilized into a generic pitch. And Steve, he's flying. He's in his zone, confident, crisp, not a single crack in the performance. People nod, people take notes. Someone claps early prematurely, but it doesn't matter, everyone's on board. When it ends, your coworker turns to you and whispers, "Damn, that's genius." You nod. It is, and it was yours. No one sees your hands trembling under the desk. No one sees the tiny muscle twitching at the corner of your jaw. But inside, something breaks. Not loudly, not like glass. More like a quiet internal click, like a switch. The worst part isn't the theft, it's the performance. Over the next few days, Steve becomes a hero. He's in every meeting now pitching your concept, like he's Moses descending from the cloud with stone tablets under one arm and synergy under the other. People eat it up. Investors are curious. The product team is inspired. Your inbox floods with calendar invites to support Project Helix. Every time you hear that name, it feels like someone's scraping a fork across your teeth. And yet, you show up. You answer questions, you write detailed code notes, and quietly explain logic that only you fully understand. You do it not because you're okay with what's happening, but because you need to buy time. You need to think. You need to breathe through it. One night you stay late long after everyone's gone. The office is dark except for your monitor's glow and the hum of the vending machine down the hall. You scroll through the back-end code you wrote line by line. There it is, your fingerprint. Every function name, every nested loop, every elegant little workaround you created to solve problems no one else saw coming. This thing is alive because of you. And then it hits you. It's dependent on you. He doesn't even realize it, but Steve has built an empire on something he doesn't know how to maintain. A machine so intricately tuned that only you could really service it. Sure, someone else could read the code, but they'd never understand the logic tree you built beneath the obvious. The redundancies, the conditional branches, the subtle dependencies no diagram would ever reveal. You lean back in your chair, heartbeat slowing. A thought starts to take shape, quiet at first, then sharper. You don't have to scream. You don't have to email HR. You don't have to beg for credit. You can just pull the thread. So you open a fresh terminal window and begin carving a key. Not something destructive, no nuclear option, just a very particular soft spot, a pressure point built into the heart of the system. If the right sequence isn't maintained, if the right daily call doesn't ping from a secure location, it begins to slow, then glitch, then quietly collapse. You work for hours whispering to yourself as you do. A kill switch, but elegant, undetectable, not malicious precautionary. You encrypt it, bury it deep, hide it in a conditional loop that looks like a failsafe. You leave no breadcrumbs. And the trigger? A simple external key only you possess, a line of code you could execute from anywhere in the world, even from your phone. You test it once, just enough to see the flicker, then reverse it, then lock it. You push away from the desk and sit back staring into the dark. Your reflection looks strange in the glass, still, focused. You don't feel guilty. You feel balanced? Because this isn't sabotage. This is insurance. He didn't just steal your idea. He stole your work. But he doesn't know that the very system he's pitching is wired to you. And now you wait. Let him build his throne on a fault line. Let him smile at investors and claim brilliance. Let him laugh. Because you have the button. And you're not in a rush to press it. Not yet. You want him to feel safe first. You become a ghost in your own code. Every meeting now begins with Steve's voice layered in charm and buzzwords, disruptive AI integrated modular by design. And you sit there nodding, smiling politely, taking notes like a diligent little worker bee while your own ideas are paraded around like showroom cars with the dealer's logo slapped on the hood. You stop trying to correct the record. What would be the point? The room isn't built to hear you. It never was. But you're not helpless. You're watching. And as the days roll on, you begin to see tiny cracks forming beneath Steve's borrowed brilliance. Like yesterday, when a dev from the partner team flagged a strange lag in the analytics dashboard. Steve brushed it off. Just a cache issue, he said without even glancing at you. But you knew it wasn't. You'd built that section with conditional routines that autocorrect when handled properly. If they're not, they slow down, subtly, gradually. It was the first tremor. Then, during the Q&A with external consultants, someone asked about the self-optimizing feedback loop. Steve tried to explain it. He used all the right words, just not in the right order. You watch the consultant nod slowly, then frown slightly, then jot something down on a yellow legal pad. Another crack. Each time you could have stepped in, clarified, rescued, like you always have. But now you sit back, arms crossed lightly, and watch. You give answers only when directly asked, and even then they're minimal, neutral, vague enough to keep the wheels turning but never fast enough to outrun the curve. Max notices. "Everything okay?" he asked you one day over lunch. "You've been quiet." You smile at him, fork poised over a bowl of grainy sad quinoa, just trying not to get in the way. He narrows his eyes. "Is this about Project Helix?" You take a long sip of your drink before answering. "You ever watch someone steal a car but forget to check if the tank is full?" Max blinks, then grins slowly. "You're scary when you're calm." "Good." Later that week, you pass by Steve's office and hear him snapping at someone over the phone. "No, I told you the module sync isn't broken, it's just sensitive. It needs, God, I don't know, a reset." You keep walking. He doesn't know that reset doesn't work anymore, that you restructured the sync dependencies last Friday, quietly, elegantly, to rely on a heartbeat signal only you can send. It's not sabotage, it's entropy carefully timed. You still deliver code, you still make pull requests, but you lace them with delays, feedback loops that almost optimize, reports that take 1 or 2 extra seconds to compile, features that fail only once at exactly the wrong time. And always you document it perfectly, like the good engineer you are. He starts to sweat. You notice the way he stares at his screen longer in meetings now, the way he starts asking you questions again cautiously, like maybe you know more than he realized. You don't gloat. You wait, because this is what revenge looks like when it's dressed in patience. Not fire, not chaos, just quiet clinical unraveling. He's still telling everyone it's working, still booking investor calls, bragging about user engagement he doesn't fully understand. And every time he opens his mouth, you think, keep going, build higher, make the fall worth it. Because the platform's still running, but it's leaning, and you know exactly which brick to pull. You wake up early the morning of the investor demo. Too early? The kind of early where the birds haven't started yet, and the city is still deciding what kind of day it wants to be. You make coffee slowly, not because you're tired, but because you want to savor the ritual. You stand in the kitchen holding your mug with both hands, watching the steam rise like breath you haven't exhaled yet. Today is not the day you push the button, but it is the day you let the cracks show. By the time you reach the office, Steve is already in prep mode. He's standing in front of the smartboard, running through the talking points with 2 junior devs who look like they're trying not to blink too hard in his direction. When he sees you, he does that thing where he lifts his chin instead of saying hello. "Systems good to go?" he asks, not even looking at you. You nod once, clean, polished, slightly optimized. You let the words slightly hang in the air like smoke. He doesn't catch it. The room fills up quickly, investors dialing in from sleek conference windows, team members lined up behind laptops like background actors. Steve stands center stage, smooth as ever. Project Helix, he begins, represents the next evolution in adaptive intelligence. A platform that doesn't just respond, it anticipates. You could almost be impressed. Almost. You glance at the interface. Everything looks perfect. No glitches, no errors. But you know what's buried beneath it: the conditional delay baked into the analytics engine. The auto-sync that doesn't sync unless pinged. The dashboard graphs that reflect last week's cache, not this morning's. It's stable, but wrong. At first, no one notices. Steve sails through the presentation. Graphs load, features toggle. Everyone nods. Then someone asks to see a live user feedback loop. Steve gestures for the intern to cue it up. There's a pause. 3 seconds. 5. The chart populates, just not the right one. You watch the flicker of confusion pass through Steve's eyes. He tries again. another tab, another lag. One of the investors leans forward. Is this data real time? Steve blinks. Of course. It's just pulling a little slow. Traffic spike. Another pause, another screen that won't load. It seems cached, the investor says. You suppress a smile. Because it is cached. You made sure of it. 48 hours behind. Locked unless manually refreshed from a secure local port yours. Steve fumbles for words. Let's move to the next. No, let's stay here. The investor interrupts. If your platform can't scale under demo conditions, how will it scale under live usage? The room gets quieter. Steve glances at you just for a second. You don't move, don't offer, don't save him. Instead, you tap gently on your keyboard off to the side. A quiet ping, just once. Suddenly, the data refreshes. Perfectly. The graphs leap to life. The live metrics stabilize. The feedback loop pulses. Steve stares at the screen like it just healed itself. He breathes a little too loud. Ah, there we go, he says quickly. Little hiccup. Nothing to worry about. The meeting moves on. No one notices the flicker of panic in his eyes. But you do. Because now he knows. Maybe he doesn't know what, but he knows something. That the system needs you in ways he can't define. That your hands are still on the wheel, even if you're not in the front seat. After the meeting, he approaches you in the hallway, smile tight. Nice recovery back there. You nod. Just a hiccup, right? He studies you. And for the first time you see it. Doubt. Not about the product. About you. And that's when you know he's finally afraid. Good. He should be. You feel it before you see it, his desperation. It starts as little things. Steve begins showing up to stand-ups he used to skip. He hovers over your shoulder more, compliments you in meetings just a hair too late, like a line he had to remind himself to say. Nice work, he tells you after a back-end patch you know he didn't even review. Couldn't have done it without you. And you smile, because that's true. He couldn't. But you also know he's looking for a way to change that. You watch him start to pull in external consultants quietly off the record. One of them emails you to discuss architecture, and you're polite but unhelpful. You know what Steve's trying to do, reverse engineer the system to remove his reliance on you. It won't work. Not because you've hidden the complexity, though you have, but because Helix isn't just a code base. It's a mindset, a philosophy, a logic tree grown from your brain like a neural branch. And he doesn't even know which parts are roots and which are leaves. He doesn't know, for instance, that if you bypass the daily check-in script, the self-healing node errors begin to compound. That after 3 days, they begin sending false positives. That by the 5th day, performance metrics collapse inward like a slow-motion sinkhole. You're watching the hole widen already. Last night, the dashboards glitched again, this time for a full minute before resyncing. This morning, the sync didn't happen at all. And still he pushes ahead. You hear him on the phone with a venture capital firm pitching Helix like it's already revolutionizing the market. Our internal diagnostics are airtight, he says confidently. You're the internal diagnostics. You take your time responding to bug tickets now. You miss a few sync pings. You let a redundant loop throw a harmless warning log just enough to set off the guy in DevOps who reads logs like prophecy. And you do it all without breaking a sweat. You've turned Steve's victory lap into a slow spiral. A carousel of false confidence. Every clean demo is thanks to your silent maintenance. Every smooth transition rests on your invisible corrections. And he's starting to notice. He asks to have a one-on-one. You sit down across from him, sip your coffee calmly. I just wanted to check in. He starts leaning back like he's trying to seem casual. You've been doing great work. You nod, thanks. I know there were some hiccups earlier in the rollout, he says carefully, but I'm feeling good about the direction. You watch him fish. I think we're about to hit something big, he adds. Maybe a public launch within the quarter. Would love your input on the messaging. You smile because input is a funny word. Messaging's important, you say. Wouldn't want to take credit for something you don't understand. The air changes just a little. He chuckles too quickly, of course. You both sip your coffee. There's nothing else to say. But now he knows. That you know. And worse for him, that you're not going to do anything overt. You're not going to storm HR. You're not going to post online. You're just going to wait and let the weight of your silence build. Let the dependency grow. Let the board meetings go on. Let the consultants take notes they can interpret. You don't need a scene. You've already written the ending. And you're the only one holding the script. He should have known better than to schedule a live investor demo without checking in with you first. You find out by accident an invite forwarded to a mailing list you're somehow still on. A calendar slot labeled Series A Pitch Prep, Helix Live Walkthrough with your name conspicuously missing. Again. At first you almost laugh. You think he's really going to try to demo it without me? Then you realize it's not confidence. It's fear. He's trying to prove he doesn't need you. Which makes what happens next all the more perfect. You spend the morning as if it's any other day. You show up to work, you answer a few emails, you log into the back-end system and run a soft diagnostic just to check. Everything's exactly where you left it. Balanced, primed, and fragile. He's in the glass conference room with the blinds half closed tighter than usual, pacing like a man rehearsing charm. The investors are already dialed in. You recognize some of the names, people with more capital than conscience, people who want results wrapped in charisma. Steve's favorite audience. At 11:02, the demo begins. You watch from your desk. He opens with the usual script. Helix is scalable, intelligent, frictionless. He talks about machine learning, predictive behavior, smart sync, and adaptive feedback. Words he learned from your pitch, your code, your long-forgotten email threads. The screen share begins. Helix loads. Slowly. A 2-second delay, then 4. You watch as Steve's smile thins slightly. He clicks into the dashboard. The graphs stutter, then freeze. The system isn't offline. It's something worse. It's confused. The data inputs begin looping, repeating last week's entries time-stamped incorrectly. The real-time feedback engine, the one he's been bragging about for weeks, fails to ping. The interface blinks, stuck between states. He tries to recover. I think there's a little traffic lag, he says, voice tightening. Someone on the call asks, is this cached data? Steve lies. No, just a small delay. Give it a sec. But the seconds stretch. A minute passes, then another. One of the investors unmutes. We're not getting anything actionable here. Are the back-end syncs active? Steve clicks wildly, switching tabs. Absolutely. They should be, up. One moment. You don't move. You don't blink. Because you know what's happening. The soft delays, the falsified loops, the conditional dependencies he never noticed. The ones that quietly desync when your encrypted ping isn't sent. And you didn't send it this morning. On purpose. You watch as the performance data drops into red zones, as the UI locks up, as the cursor freezes in the middle of a refresh. One of the dashboards throws a minor error, loop thread exception data, missing harmless but damning when you don't know what it means. The call is losing them. You can hear it in the silence between Steve's sentences. One investor asks, have you tested this infrastructure under stress? Another adds, is the product truly operational? Or is this still a concept? And that is the crack that splits everything. Because the moment someone questions the reality of what you're selling, the illusion collapses. Steve tries to recover with a slick redirect. Of course, it's operational. We're just having a small integration hiccup with our demo environment. Translation, I have no idea what's happening. You lean back in your chair, cross your legs, sip your coffee. You don't interfere. He doesn't call your name, not this time. Because saying it would admit too much. By noon, the call ends early. No one claps, no one stays to chat. Steve exits the room alone, jaw-tight, forehead shiny with stress. He passes by your desk and doesn't say a word, but you catch the way he glances at your screen. You give him the smallest smile. Just enough. Let him wonder. Let him sweat. Because that glitch? That wasn't a failure. That was a warning, and you haven't even pressed the button yet. He doesn't ask you what went wrong. Not directly. Instead, he circles like a dog that senses the fence is electric but can't see the wire. He drops passive comments in meetings. Let's run more QA before we schedule anything else. He starts looping you into threads he used to keep you out of each one, an attempt to feel you out without showing his hand. But you don't play along. You answer what's necessary, you attend what's required, and you watch. Because now the panic's begun to bloom. You see it in his emails, longer, more desperate, filled with buzzwords and apologies masked as alignment. He sends a recap to the investors 2 days later with phrases like unexpected system latency and internal network misfire, a whole paragraph on back-end complexity beyond initial scope. He doesn't mention your name once, but you know what that paragraph really says. It says, I don't know how this works, and I'm scared of the person who does. Later that week, you spot another meeting on the calendar. Bigger this time. A term sheet review, Series A funding. He's pushing forward, trying to prove Helix is salvageable. that the product is ready, that he is ready. And still no acknowledgement, no apology, no credit. Just desperation dressed as optimism. So you start preparing. You clean up your files. You back up your original codebase to an external encrypted drive, the real one, the version without landmines, the one that runs lean clean perfectly. You label the backup with one word, resurrect, and then you prepare the opposite. The button, it's not a big red cartoon-style switch, it's just a command line on a secure server you alone can access. A single quiet sequence that severs the conditional threads, disables the heartbeat signal, and initiates a cascade of logic errors through the Helix core engine. You test it in a sandbox. It works flawlessly. If Steve tries to push this system live without you, it will collapse. Not loudly, not explosively, but slow and irreversible. Metrics will drift, features will hang, syncs will time out, and no one will know why. Only you. You stare at the blinking cursor on your screen, then close the terminal without pressing anything. Not yet. Because revenge is a dish best served after the second funding round. After the press release. After the public launch. After he's told the world it's real. That's the moment that costs him the most. So you wait. The day of the board meeting, he's unusually quiet. He passes you in the hallway, nods, says nothing. You catch him once looking at your laptop out of the corner of his eye. You wonder if he knows, if some part of him feels the noose tightening not around his neck, but around the fantasy he built. He thinks he can raise millions on a system that runs because you let it. He's about to find out what happens when you don't. That afternoon, he locks himself in a conference room with 2 executives and the lead investor. You hear laughter at first, then voices rising, then a long silence. He emerges with his phone pressed tight to his earface, blank, walking fast. He doesn't look at you. You turn back to your screen and type 2 words into your personal notepad. Soon, maybe, because that's the power now. You have the code. You have the key. And more than anything, you have time. You do it on a Tuesday. No fanfare, no dramatic countdown. Just you at your desk late again, sipping lukewarm coffee while the rest of the office hums with end-of-day chatter. You're calm. You've been calm for days now. Like your mind made peace with what had to happen long before your fingers ever touched the keyboard. The terminal window is already open. The line is already typed. You sit with it for a full minute, just breathing, listening to the sound of the HVAC rumbling faintly in the ceiling. Then, you press enter. The cursor blinks once. That's all. No fireworks, no alarms. Just a system beginning to forget how to hold itself together. The sequence runs silently like blood leaving a body. It severs the sync pulses. It untethers the feedback engine. It shifts every live data node 2 degrees out of phase. Nothing crashes. But everything will start to drift. By the time Steve notices it'll be too late, you log off, close your laptop, slide it into your bag, and you leave. The next morning, the emails begin. Dashboard data's not matching up with user logs, anyone else seeing that. Ping failure on backend node 3, can someone check the cron job? Why are our engagement numbers frozen at Monday's figures? Steve responds first with confidence. Just a sync delay, give it a few hours. By noon, confidence becomes concern. Can someone trace the sync flow? Where's the loop choking? By 4 p.m., concern has turned into near panic. You're called into an emergency meeting. Steve's got that sheen of sweat again. His shirt sleeves are rolled up like he's been wrestling with something invisible. You sit down slowly, open your laptop, and ask, what's going on? He throws his hands up. Everything's lagging. The dashboards are ghosting live data, the feedback module's throwing garbage, and the predictive engine keeps reverting to test states. You nod. Strange. I need you to look, he says. We can't have another investor call like last week. Not with the launch scheduled. You lean forward, frowning thoughtfully. Have you changed anything in the architecture recently? He blinks. No, of course not. You nod again, then tap a few keys pretending to diagnose. You already know what's happening. The system is consuming itself one delay at a time. Steve leans in. Can you fix it? You meet his eyes, calm, flat. I could. That lands heavy. He hesitates. Could. You shrug. Depends. Depends on what? You look around. The room is full of people, all suddenly very still. It depends on whether we're honest about how we got here, you say, quietly. The words float there for a second. Then Steve laughs too loudly. This isn't the time for a lecture. We need to stabilize. No, Steve, you interrupt. You need to stabilize. I was never unstable. Silence. You close your laptop and stand. Let me know when you're ready to talk about what really built this. You leave the room, no one stops you. By evening, you have 7 unread messages. 1 from Steve, 4 from IT, 2 from the board. You don't answer. You go home, eat slowly, play a record, let the chaos ferment without you. And somewhere in a clean folder on your hard drive, your original system waits. The one that works, the one without poison in its veins. And only you know where it lives. The begging starts the next morning. First, it's a short email from Steve. Let's talk, just the 2 of us. Please. You ignore it. Then a Slack message, can we reset? I know things got off track. No reply. By noon, your phone rings. He never calls. But now it buzzes twice in your hand, Steve, trying to sound composed. You let it go to voicemail. Hey, I know you're upset. You've made your point. But we're in a critical window. The board is breathing down my neck. I need you to fix this. You'll get full credit going forward, I swear. You sit in silence for a full minute after listening, the phone heavy in your hand. Credit, as if that's all you wanted. As if this was a tantrum you were supposed to outgrow once your name got printed on a pitch deck. You put your phone face down and open your laptop instead. No code today, just old files. Photos of your whiteboard notes from 6 months ago, scribbled diagrams from your apartment walls, the genesis of Helix, your helix, before anyone else even knew its name. It wasn't just code, it was identity, obsession. You gave it hours no one saw, solved problems in the shower, rewrote entire logic paths during insomnia spells. You breathed this system into life. And Steve tried to steal it like it was paper. By the afternoon, the tone of his messages shifts. From pleading to sharp. We need access to the backup node. Where did you store the offline cache? Our DevOps lead is escalating this. If you've altered anything critical, legal will be involved. You smile. There it is. Fear stripped of charm. You open Slack and finally type, didn't alter anything. You just built on a foundation you didn't understand. He replies instantly. That sounds like an admission. You close the app without responding. He doesn't get it. You didn't sabotage anything. You just stopped saving him. The board reaches out next. An email from a woman named Corinne, polite, crisp, concerned. We'd appreciate your perspective on the current system instability. We've heard your contributions were significant. We're eager to hear more. You read it twice. It's the first time anyone at that level has acknowledged you by name. You reply happy to speak, but only off record, and only when Steve is not in the room. 10 minutes later, you have a Zoom link in a 4 p.m. slot. You wear black for the call, not symbolic, just clean, professional, unapologetic. Corinne is younger than you expected, sharp-eyed. She doesn't waste time. Can you tell me what Helix needs to stabilize? You take a long breath. Yes, you say. But first, I'd like to explain how we got here. You walk her through the history date structure system design. You show receipts, emails, versions. You don't rant. You present. And when she asks the quiet question, did you break it? You shake your head once. I didn't break it. I just stopped holding it together. She leans back in her chair, exhales. That's worse, she says quietly. For him. You nod. When the call ends, she doesn't promise anything. She just thanks you, then logs off. You close your laptop and stare at your reflection in the dark screen. You haven't smiled this honestly in weeks. And deep down you know. The real fall hasn't even begun. The board moves quickly after that. You hear about it not from Steve, but from Max, who pings you late the next morning with nothing but a link to a press release and a single word. Wow. The announcement is all corporate polished leadership transition to support product stability and vision. Steve is stepping down, effective immediately. No scandal, no lawsuit, no dramatic public unmasking, just silence. And then removal. You read the announcement 3 times, then set your phone down and take a walk. No destination, just movement, breathing. The sky is soft, overcast. The kind of gray that doesn't feel heavy, just quiet. You think about how fast it happened. How a man who once held meetings where you sat invisible, who smiled as he pitched your ideas with your words, is now a footnote in a reorganization memo. It doesn't feel like revenge. It feels like vacuum. Like someone yanked the plug out of a tank and watched everything drain. By the time you get back to your desk, your inbox has started to shift. A note from HR about next steps. A message from Corinne. We're reassessing product structure. Would love to discuss your ongoing role. You don't answer right away because you're not sure you want to stay. This wasn't about taking his seat. It was about taking back yourself. You watch the internal Slack ripple with speculation, people whispering, some celebrating, others nervous. Very few messaging you privately saying things like, I always knew it was your build. We should have spoken up sooner. You okay? You're not sure how to respond to that last one. Because you are. But also, you're something else. Something bigger than okay. You're clear. You log into the system one last time just to check. Helix is still twitching the way something does when it's halfway between breaking and healing. You open the terminal, pull up the original heartbeat protocol, the one only you know how to resync. And you pause. This right here is power. Real power. Not loud, not vengeful. Just a quiet understanding of who holds the threads. You could fix it. You could rebuild it. You could own it. But do you want to? That night you sleep longer than you have in months. No dreams, no weight in your chest. Just sleep like a reset button you finally remembered you had. The next day Corinne calls. She's calm, measured, but she doesn't dance around anything. We want to keep Helix alive, she says. And we want it done right. No games, no shortcuts. We want you to lead it. You take a breath. I'm considering other offers, you say, because you are. 2 companies reached out after the news broke, both offering titles that start with chief. Corinne nods like she expected that. We'd be lucky to keep you, she says simply. And that's the difference. Not flattery. Respect. You tell her you'll think about it. You hang up. You walk to the window. And for the first time since all of this began, you feel like you're standing in your own story. Not as the sidekick. Not as the backup, not as the one who fixes everything quietly in the background, but as the architect, the one who knew where every kill switch lived and never needed to press them all to win. You don't stay. You think about it? Really think. They make you a generous offer. Title bump stock options, full creative control. Corinne personally calls to walk you through the new roadmap promising transparency, autonomy, the works. But something inside you whispers that chapter is already closed. You walk back into the office one last time, not to restart, to retrieve, to collect the pieces of yourself scattered across long nights and unread emails. You log in, export your personal files, and finally delete the kill switch key from your secure server. Not because they earned it, but because you no longer need it. Max finds you packing up and leans in the doorway like he always does. So that's it. You zip your bag, that's it. He watches you a second longer. Where are you going? You smile. Somewhere they know where the code came from before they write the story. He nods, then says, half joking, You're kind of a legend now, you know. You shake your head. No. Just someone who decided not to disappear quietly. You leave the building without fanfare. No farewell speech, no cupcakes, no signed card. Just a quiet walk through the exit like you've finally stepped off a stage you never wanted to perform on in the first place. A week later, you're sitting across from a new team at a new company. One that asked you to pitch your product. One that doesn't ask if you're sure about your own architecture. They don't look surprised when you speak. They just listen. You present a cleaner, sharper version of Helix, not the rebranded mess Steve tried to sell, the real one. The one that still lives in the notes from that sleepless month where it all began. They don't ask who else worked on this. They ask, when can we start building it with you? That's the difference. You don't need to be the smartest in the room. You just need to be in a room that sees you clearly. By the time your first paycheck clears, Steve's name has vanished from every version of the Helix documentation. His LinkedIn says consultant. The platform he pitched doesn't exist anymore. Just a failed branch of code no one wants to maintain. You don't laugh, you don't screenshot it. You just let it drift away. Because the real revenge was never about burning anything down. It was about building something so clean, so undeniably yours, that no one could ever take it again.